You're listening to the League Bound Podcast.
Coming again. Oh, mercy.
Your source for weekly coverage on the future stars of the NBA.
Gives it to Jenkins for the championship.
I'm your co-host, Jake Schrantz.
And I'm your co-host, Branden Blue.
With production for the podcast coming from Broderick Wilken.
With the first pick in the NBA draft.
Here we are for a special episode of League Bound, a show where we break down prospects and the best players in college basketball and talk about breaking news in the college basketball world. Today we have a G League Ignite special for you where we will give you all you need to know about these fascinating upcoming NBA rookies. I'm your co-host Jacob Schrantz along with my co-host Branden Blue. Branden, how are you doing on this fantastic late Thursday night?
I'm doing great, Jake. Thank you for asking. We just dropped our first YouTube channel on the video.
Sir.
It's already at 100 views in one day. So I'm doing great. Brody, how you doing today?
I am also doing fantastic. With some time constraints, we figured we might as well just drop a special episode for you guys. Not too much news. Sadly, we won't be able to do League Him or the stock market. And instead, we'll just really get into these G League Ignite players because it's kind of something we don't really cover much on the podcast, but it totally deserves it because as we slowly keep going here, more and more separate leagues outside of just college basketball are allowing players to get ready for the NBA after high school.
Yeah, definitely, Brody. And if you want to learn some more about that, you're going to have to check out my man Branden's video here on the YouTube channel if you're watching or listening on there. But with that being said, let's get into the negativity section. Negativity!
In case y'all don't know, I thrive off of negativity. During the negativity section, we will be breaking down any fights, scuffles, trash talk, ejections that take place during the college basketball week. And for this week's negativity segment, we have Kentucky versus Tennessee. Oh, a little SEC rivalry. Okay. So we had John Fulkerson, a volunteer forward, fell onto the Wildcat bench after diving for a loose ball. It took him a little while to get up, but some Wildcat players tried to help him up from the bench, but he took exception to one of them helping him up. A little trash talk ensued. Then there kind of became a mob of people, and the mob kind of got a little pushy and shovey. But I was screaming at the screen when I saw it on TV because, in case you guys don't know, I really do thrive off of it.
Yeah, it's always amazing to just watch this negativity happen every week because, you know, it's just like that one meme with Leonardo DiCaprio where he just points at the screen. It's like, negativity, it's right there. We love to scrounge for it every week. It's maybe our favorite segment on the show, I would say.
One of them, definitely.
Without negativity, I don't think I would be anything, really. Negativity just fuels all of our favorite rivalries, and I need it.
It's really what makes sports sometimes. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, you need that competitive juices flowing, and It was kind of weird to watch. You know, Fulkerson just went down towards their bench, slow to get up, and then all of a sudden, just a mob of people were surrounding him. It was kind of weird. Like, I didn't really see just with my naked eye if there was any pushing or shoving initially, but then all of a sudden it was just a massive scuffle for no reason. But
yeah, someone definitely must have said something.
Yeah, I got to think it was something verbally. But with that being said, let's take it to the news.
Guys, I think we have some breaking negativity. I just got a notification. Oral Roberts, North Dakota State, post-game scuffle. It was wild, guys.
I just watched it with him. It was insane.
You know, there was some little trash talk. They had to break them up, but it escalated.
Way more than the other.
They were pushing, shoving. I think somebody threw some punches. It was wild. I don't know if any of you guys have seen that Detroit Pistons LA Lakers fight where Isaiah Stewart started storming up the court and trying to get to LeBron.
Like just dead sprinting, trying to get past people, trying to move him off the court.
One of the players on Oral Roberts was getting pulled away from the fight, but he just got a fit of rage and just broke two coaches off of him and just charged. I don't even know who he was. I don't even know who he was getting after. Then the fight ended and somebody couldn't get up. It was crazy. Wow. I really love negativity. But anyway.
And yeah, we were just talking about how fantastic that is. really a great addition to it. North Dakota Oral Roberts, if you want to see it, it's on the internet somewhere. It was kind of a random rare find, so yeah.
What's the news?
First off, for our news segment, we have Rutgers. They have to be one of the hottest teams in basketball right now. Beat Michigan State last week, who was ranked 19th. Then beat Ohio State, who was ranked 18th. This past Saturday, they beat Wisconsin, and Johnny Davis only put up 11 points and 8 rebounds. And then yesterday, they beat Illinois, who's ranked 12th in the country. So they're going on a roll late in this Big Ten run, or Big Ten stretch.
Yeah, for Rutgers, Ron Harper Jr. has been showing out. He's one of the most experienced and I would say one of the best players in all of the Big Ten Conference. I've been proud to see his leadership and his ability to just carry this team on his back for stretches at a time, especially in a tough stretch like this with all these ranked matchups. Rutgers, they're earning their stripes here, and they might be a little bit of an upset favorite here into March.
Next on our news segment, we have Jabari Smith. It looks like he carried over some of that hot energy that we saw at the end of the Arkansas game last week, and he just carried it over into today's game versus Vanderbilt, or yesterday's game versus Vanderbilt, where he had 31 points and 7 of 10 from 3.
Yeah, just watching that, I mean, he just couldn't miss last night. The basket probably looked like an ocean for him. Scottie Pippen Jr. is one of my favorite players in this class to watch. He's just a bucket. He had this one really nice poster in the game early on. I thought maybe that would be enough to get Vanderbilt kind of hyped up. But, Jabari Smith, he might be the best player in this draft, so you're not going to be able to fluster him. And
do you guys think scouts are drooling watching this kind of thing happen from a big 7 for 10 from 3?
Yeah, I mean, he just looked comfortable on the perimeter. Like, none of those shots really looked kind of awkward in the system. He's maybe one of the most confident players in all of college basketball right now on the perimeter, and it's kind of showing with this efficiency from three-point range.
I really also think it speaks levels to the damage that he can do once he gets to the league, because to have a 6'10" lethal shooter like him is not something to mess around with. Next, this is a little bit of just hoping that he's okay, but during the game against Wake Forest, Coach K left at halftime. He said he was experiencing a little bit of dizziness and fatigue. In Coach K's last season, this is not something that you want to see, and honestly, I'm just hoping that he's okay and that we see him come back for the rest of the games this season.
Honestly, I'm kind of maybe glad he didn't get to see that finish live, because seeing Paulo miss that layup and then the tip dunk by Mark Williams probably would not be good for anybody's health, whether or not you're leaving at halftime. So that must have been stressful for them. But moving on, Tennessee beat Kentucky. Branden, what did you think about that?
Tennessee beat Kentucky 76-63 at home. Really, it just looked like Tennessee had control of the whole game. But honestly, I think this just speaks to how tough SEC games on the road are. Number 4 Kentucky, but any game in the SEC on the road against a ranked opponent isn't going to be easy. And a team like Tennessee, who has Kennedy Chandler, Santiago Vescovi, and an elite backcourt, it's just not going to be a easy matchup. So I don't think Kentucky needs to worry about this. But if anything, I think this shows that Tennessee is a team to be reckoned with. Moving on, we have Baylor versus Texas Tech, and this atmosphere was crazy.
Oh my goodness.
I remember in their first matchup, Baylor was number 1 in the nation, but that strong defense from Texas Tech kind of dismantled them. And Baylor hasn't looked the same since, and it carried over into yesterday's matchup when Texas Tech finished out the sweep and got them again, but this time on their own home turf.
Yeah, Patrick Mahomes was I believe he was courtside at this game, and I want to say he tweeted out like that was the best, atmosphere in all of college basketball. There's videos all over the place. The entire arena was just like rocking back and forth pregame. I would say the college atmosphere is probably my favorite thing about college basketball, just because of how invested everyone in the stadium or in the arena is. And it's just amazing to watch.
I would also just like to shout out Kevin O'Banner, who had 23 points and 13 rebounds and went 57% from shooting behind the line of 4 of 7. Congrats.
And also shout out for one of the favorites of the podcast, Adonis Arms, just for having maybe the most goated name in all of college basketball right now. Shout out to you.
Prospect Breakdown.
Jaden Hardy, it is your time. Time for your Prospect Breakdown. For those of you who don't know, Jaden Hardy is part of the G League Ignite program, which is dedicated towards giving top-ranked recruits an alternative to the NCAA, or the NC2A. Players receive compensation up to $500,000 and get to play in the NBA Developmental League, also known as the NBA G League, and have access to NBA veteran teammates and coaches to help prepare them for the next level.
Yeah, Brandon, and even just last year with the G League Ignite program, we saw Jalen Green and Jonathan Kuminga both make it into the lottery as draft picks, and both of them are having some pretty good success so far in their rookie year.
And, with only 2 years in the G League Ignite right now, it's kind of giving college or graduated high school basketball players an opportunity to play somewhere outside of college, and that's got to be concerning for the NCAA, I'd think at least.
But that's enough fluff around the NBA G League. Let's get straight into Jaden Hardy here. He's 6'4", 198 pounds. And in the regular season, he averaged about 17 points, 4.5 rebounds, just over 3 assists, only 21.7 from three-point percentage, and 34.6% shooting overall. And so breaking down Jaden Hardy here, last week Brandon was talking about how Jaden Ivey was one of his most exciting players to watch this season. Well, I got to say, the G League Ignite team is one of my favorite outlets of basketball to enjoy, and a big reason for that this year was actually Jaden Hardy. When he's on his game, he is dangerous. Like, he's a confident ball handler that can get to his spot consistently. He's got a pretty smooth jumper that he utilizes from virtually anywhere. Like, he'll pull from 40 even sometimes. He thinks he's Damian Lillard at times, which sometimes bites him in the butt, but not always. He averaged, as I said, 17 points per game on not super efficient shooting. I'd like to see him improve that a little bit. But don't let the numbers fool you. He was playing against the grown men and former even NBA talent that is displayed in the G League. Are you going to tell me Chet Holmgren is playing against the same talent level consistently in the West Coast Conference? I really don't think so. Chet's a great player, but you just got to take that into account when you talk about Jaden Hardy. A lot of his game reminds me of Cam Thomas from last year, who was one of my top players in the class, actually. You look at him now, he's balling out in the Barclays Center for the Nets. He's put up multiple 20-point games for the Nets. His future is looking bright for Brooklyn. And Jaden is not as efficient as Cam from what I've seen, but they have a similar play style, and I wish we would get to see them, maybe go at it for some one-on-one in the Rising Stars Challenge, but unfortunately, Cam Thomas didn't make it. I would say his biggest weakness right now is, selecting the best shots to get his efficiency up. He's had a couple of games this season where his three-point shot really isn't on the mark as much as you'd like to see it, but he keeps on pulling instead of, impacting the game in a more positive way. What do you think, Brandon?
Yeah. I don't want to rehash a lot of what you said because honestly, I kind of agree with it. He has good shot creating potential. He creates space. He gets defenders to bite on pretty much anything. He has the quickness to take defenders off the dribble. He has great finishing ability. He's really just a highly skilled player, honestly, and I think that's the best part about his game, He doesn't rely so much on athleticism. It's just pure skill. He does take a lot of shots, but as a G League Ignite player, I think it's good that he's doing that because the program is designed for him to, get those looks against NBA caliber players, even if they're G League players, and kind of just have his way and, figure out what works for him and what doesn't. And so I like that he's taking a lot of shots. I feel like you can't really read too much into the stats because with someone like Jaden Hardy too, if you really watch his game, it's not like he's necessarily bad or, forcing. Well, you could say he's forcing, but I feel like really once he polishes it, it's not going to matter that much because, he's creating a lot of space on a lot of the three-point shots that he's taking. He's getting to the rim nicely. He's just not finishing through that contact. He doesn't really have much of a defensive presence, but that wasn't really ever somebody I expected him to be. But I think he'll be a great player, once he gets a few years into the league. But one thing I will say about him is that it does kind of hurt that he's didn't go to a college school because playing with we kind of saw it with Jalen Green and even Jonathan Kuminga, especially last year. They don't have as big of a sample size, and they're not playing on the biggest stage. So they're going to fall probably a lot further than they should. But, I think Jaden knew that when he decided to go to the G League, so I think it'll pan out. And I think he'll even end up in a situation where the team's a little bit better, and I think that'll help him out, kind of like Jonathan Kuminga.
For someone like Jaden Hardy in the G League versus other players in college basketball, personally, do you think it's more impressive that he's putting these numbers up in the G League? And how do you think scouts are seeing his performances in the G League? Because you say he's a lot of these G League Ignite players are getting snub spots, you could say, and then just turn out to play extremely well in the NBA. Just purely based on, where they went to the Ignite.
Yeah, I think a lot of that has to do, I personally, to answer your question, I'm pretty high on the G League Ignite program. I value it a lot. I think that the level of play that they're playing against matters a lot. You hear growing up, the players who play up in age level, they tend to be a lot better than a lot of the kids that don't do that at their own age. So just that concept kind of playing in at a professional level, I think that's kind of a big thing, and we're seeing it now kind of later on in the season with Kuminga in Golden State. He hasn't played a ton of minutes this year, but in his kind of short spurts that he gets in the game, he has a pretty big impact on both ends of the floor, and I think a lot of that was built up with what he learned from NBA trainers and what he learned just being on the court against NBA-level talent.
Yeah, kind of to piggyback off that, with the G League Ignite, you're kind of put at an advantage because you're learning NBA, language, lingo, kind of their philosophies that, in college you don't have because it's a different game. Not to mention that you're also with NBA vets kind of coach you on the floor as your teammates. So, and I think with Jonathan Kuminga, we're seeing that because he's fitting into his role really well. And for guys like Jaden Hardy, who I think have very high potential, it's really going to benefit him.
How do you think these NBA scouts are seeing these G League Ignite players, and how do you think they're comparing them to college players? How do you think, are they seeing that extra experience and advantage they're having over college basketball players, and do they like seeing that?
For me, I think that just going off of last year with Jalen Green going number 2 overall to the Houston Rockets, I think that kind of shows that some GMs are valuing it at a high level. Jalen Green was very good for Ignite last year. He was pretty good offensively. He wasn't great defensively, which that's carried over into the NBA. But on the other hand, I think that a lot of outlets, and maybe not in the GM position, but especially in the media, with anything new, they're kind of maybe anti or kind of like not valuing it as much as they should. This is only in their second year of doing this, but I could definitely see later on in maybe 5-10 years, this is something that maybe even be more valued than the NCAA.
Yeah, and to kind of answer why they see value in it, we've kind of already talked about, playing against G League players, but the G League is just kind of a miniature form of the NBA, and the NCAA and the NBA are kind of two different. They play two different styles. There's more spacing in the NCAA, and I would say NBA players kind of have more of a free will, if that makes sense. In terms of ball handling and just being more positionless. So I feel like they kind of get to see how these prospects would play in an NBA setting, whereas NCAA things are different. And
kind of stepping away from Jaden Hardy for a second, do you guys think you could see more teams like G League Ignite being formed in the G League after they start seeing success from Ignite? And do you think that'll start pulling a lot of talent away from the NCAA?
I'm not sure if there'll be more G League teams that are like created that do the same thing as Ignite, but I could definitely see as more and more players are kind of lottery picks, high level talents in the NBA. I could definitely see more players kind of joining the team consistently. So far in 2 years, there's been some high-level recruits that have gone there, but I think we could see even an improvement on that in the future.
Yeah, I don't think we'll see a whole lot of more teams, But I feel like if it does, really produce a lot of players, we'll definitely try to see them bring in some more of those maybe top 5 recruits, and I think they'll go to the NBA or go to the NCAA not as frequently, especially since, I feel like even today with a lot of top recruits, they go to schools that they still think will help prepare them for the NBA. But when you have an option that's going to prepare you for the NBA and also pay you, it's kind of like, the G League's the way after a while.
And I'm not sure how much of this would play into it in the future, but we're seeing guys like Roy Williams at UNC. He just retired recently. Coach K, this is his last season. So a lot of these big-name coaches of the last decade or so are kind of phasing out of the NCAA and college basketball. So I wonder if that will be something that people kind of consider as they decide on whether to go to the G League or to the NCAA.
Now, let's kind of bounce back to Jaden Hardy. I don't think we really covered too much of his weaknesses, did we?
So yeah, for Jaden Hardy, I think his biggest weakness is definitely his efficiency. And I mean, you could probably put his defense up there to match that, but I'll let Branden take that part. I would say his efficiency for me is his biggest weakness as, being a guard that's so, shot heavy. He's kind of a volume scorer at this point in his career. And I think if he wants to be that number one option on a team, he's going to have to be more consistent on a night-to-night basis.
Yeah. Like I said, kind of the streakiness, I talked about it before. It's not that big of an issue, I don't feel like, because once he gets into the league, he'll know what works for him and what doesn't. And so he'll just kind of be able to, he'll be able to have an idea of what works for him, so he'll be able to be more efficient. But so that's not too big of a concern for me. But like I said, I talked about defense and, not really being much of a playmaker. So I feel like as he gets better, he's going to have to find more ways to impact the game because I feel like in scouting reports, they're going to, have ways to slow him down.
And back to the efficiency part of his game on offense, we've seen other wings come into the league. And I'm not saying he's like these guys. His game doesn't really match up with these two guys, but like Jaylen Brown and Jimmy Butler, they came into the league. They weren't super efficient from three-point right away, and they were two great examples of guys who have definitely improved on that aspect of their game. So I could definitely see someone like Jaden Hardy, who has kind of proven he's a gym rat, with G League Ignite this season. He's working almost, I think in your video you said like 10 to 12 hours a day, just working on their craft. So I could definitely see that being something that is big for his development on the outside.
So Tankathon has Jaden Hardy going at 20. Do you think this is kind of a spot he should be getting drafted in, or do you think he's heavily underrated?
All right, for me, I think I've made this pretty clear. I'm very high on Jaden Hardy. He's one of my favorite players in the entire draft class. So let me just break it down for you. If he gets past the Portland Trailblazers' second first-round pick, I'm going to be mad. Because with no CJ McCollum, Damian Lillard is, who knows what's going to happen in the future with him. You have Anthony Simons, no Norman Powell. You have to add a dynamic shot maker to that roster. So if Portland has a chance to take Jaden Hardy and they pass on him for someone else, I might be on the phone with Portland, bro. No cap.
Jake, there's a chance you could walk home angry on draft day because, his stock in these mock drafts is kind of all over the place. I think he's still a top 5, top 10 pick, but, I think it'll work out even better for him. I'm kind of a guy who has a affection for guys, who are really good, just ending up on a good program. Something about it I really like it, just making a team better instantly and seeing the results in the playoffs.
But just to wrap it up here for Jaden Hardy, I think me and Branden both agree he has a pretty high ceiling if he can kind of get his weaknesses figured out on both ends of the floor as a dynamic shot maker and maybe a primary ball handler for a strong offense in the league. But I don't know if you guys know this, but Jaden Hardy isn't even the only top player in this draft be on this G League Ignite team. We've got Marjon Beauchamp. He's 6'6". He's a wing player. He puts in a ton of effort on defense. He hustles a lot on that end. He operates off the cut. That's where he gets a lot of his buckets. But he's actually a good shooter too. He can take his game to the next level by improving his shot creation at that point. But Marjon Beauchamp, another name to keep your eye out for in this NBA draft.
And kind of just a quick question. I mean, do you think he would have had a draft potential had he not gone to Ignite?
Well, Beauchamp is kind of an interesting situation. Not too many people know about him just because out of high school, he was kind of in that transition period into college where he kind of went into like this NBA training center, similar to a guy like Kyrie Walker. That kind of took his name out of the spotlight for a while, but he's back. He showed out in a couple games for Ignite, and he definitely put his name into that maybe late first round to early second round, I would say.
I think he has the potential to catch some people off guard. I know a lot of people look at his age because he's 21 and kind of write him off, but I think when you have the tools and potential, the age doesn't matter.
Yeah, especially if he goes to a team that's late in this draft. Obviously, that's basically a playoff team, except for, the Thunder at 30 here with the Suns pick. But that's a good player on the wing, super good athlete that you would add to a strong roster already. But even with that, the Ignite has more players in this draft that we could be seeing in the first round. And one of those guys is Dyson Daniels. He's a pretty big guard for Ignite this year. He's 6'6", 170 pounds. He's a pretty good all-around player. He's not too flashy. He can make a three. He can get to the rim. He can find an open man, but, I'm more high on Jaden Hardy. I can't believe Tankathon has him higher than Jaden Hardy. That's despicable to me.
I will say Dyson Daniels is just the definition of a player who's really solid. In a lot of ways, it's not just because they're both Australian, but he does remind me a lot of Dante Exum, because when he first initially came into the league, he was just solid. But, I haven't seen too much of Dyson Daniels, with him being on G League Ignite, but, I think once he gets into the NBA, especially during Summer League, we'll be able to see a lot more of him.
Yeah, another big guard that kind of, I think Dyson Daniels gives me shades of, it would be like Michael Carter-Williams, just a guy who both ends is just pretty solid. He's not going to, wow you a lot, but he can do a lot of things in the court pretty well. But I think maybe the sleeper on this team, we'll get into Scoot Henderson in a second. He's very good, but he can't get drafted this year, so don't worry about him quite yet. But my man Michael Foster for the G League Ignite, I think he has maybe the highest ceiling of all of them. He's 6'8", 250 pounds. He's 19 years old. He's a power forward. He can rock the rim with some nasty dunks. He got a lot of his buckets, off the cut, finding his way in transition. A lot of big plays came with Jaden Hardy and Michael Foster in transition. That was pretty dynamic to see, but keep your eye out for Michael Foster, late in the second round as someone that a team might take a flyer on and maybe develop for a couple years, and he might be a very solid option for them in the future.
Last G League player we have is Scoot Henderson. He can't be drafted this year, as Jake already said, but I've seen some film of him, and he looks like a really solid playmaker. And on top of that, he hasn't really shown much of his jump shot game, but I feel like it's pretty polished from what we have seen. And I really like his feel that he just has for the game. And you can tell that he's a high IQ basketball player. And I think that's something that a lot of scouts will be looking at when he goes into the league next year.
Yeah, and you look at Scoot Henderson, his birthday is February 3rd, 2004. So he literally just turned 18. What was that, maybe a week or so ago now? So, being able to do that at basically 17 years old all season, that is extremely impressive in my opinion. And more impressive than a lot of these, second round guys who are doing this against way lesser talent at an older age. They're going to be stronger. They're going to be more experienced. So I think Scoot Henderson is a name to look out for even next year as maybe the top player in the class.
Keep in mind, he's getting 2 years of G League experience. So next year, when he's on the G League Ignite, he could be putting up some monster numbers against NBA caliber players.
Trivia!
I think that's all we got for our G League special. How about we get into some trivia?
Let's do
Yes,
it.
sir. I'm taking this round. Jake, back off.
So for our special, actually, our special hasn't ended yet, technically, because we have some G League trivia. I've only got 3 questions this week. We were kind of in a rush to get this out, but I think we still did a pretty good job. Let's get right into it. 3 questions. I'm not messing up this time. These are accurate. These are straight off of the G League website.
Primary source.
Primary source. None of this secondary, couple months old. This is updated now, and watch me still be wrong somehow. All right. Believe it or not, G League players have been drafted from the G League straight into the NBA. How many players have been drafted out of the G League? And this does not include Ignite. I'm going to give you a range from 5 to 15, and you got to pick a number between that.
I'm going to take 7.
Okay.
I'm going to go with 5.
5. So 7 and 5. The answer is 7. Jake
Let's
got that
go.
right. Jake
I'm
got it
nice
right.
with the trivia, Branden.
Okay. Question number 2. And I don't know how much you guys know about the G League. So we'll kind of see here. How many teams are in the G League? How many teams are in the G League? This does include the Ignite. I am including the Ignite in this.
I'm going to take a shot. I think 31.
Okay, Branden, I want you to pick a number outside of his, just so we can...
I want to say about 28 or 27 because I know not every team has a G League affiliate.
Okay.
So I'm going to rock with that.
Well, Branden, you would have been closer if it hadn't been about a year ago because they added another team and the answer is 30.
Let's go.
So
I can't lose in this segment. I'm nice.
Jake has taken week what, 5?
Yeah,
week
this
5
is episode
now.
5.
Yeah, episode 5 now. We do have one more question, so you could redeem yourself. You could still get one right.
Confidence
you could still
boost
get one
for Blue.
right.
All or nothing. All or nothing.
All or nothing.
If I get this right, Jake loses all of his points.
Fair enough.
Question number 3, our final question of the night is, which G League team has won the most titles? Was it A, the Rio Grande Valley Vipers, B, the Agua Caliente Clippers, or C, the Sioux Falls Skyforce? So that's 3 teams.
I'm going to go with the first one. What was the first one again?
The Rio Grande Valley Vipers.
Is that what you want to go with, Branden? I'll let you take it.
Agua Caliente
It's all or nothing.
Clippers.
So I think if it's all or nothing,
Oh,
Branden
we're
should
doing
get
all
the
or
chance.
nothing?
Yeah.
Okay.
That is what I wanted to rock with.
All right,
yes.
so I guess I'll go with the Sioux Falls Skyforce. They're the older team.
All right.
I think. I don't know. They sound like the older team to me.
Well, the answer is A. It was the Rio
Wow.
Grande Valley Vipers. Branden,
Unreal.
we decided to go all or nothing.
Hey,
Branden,
it is what it is.
Jake
Fair
took
enough.
the
My
gamble. I think it was a lose-lose situation regardless, but hey,
Bring
you know,
me my money.
so they won 3 titles, which isn't a ton, but the G League's only been around since, I think, 2001. So it was 2010, 2013, and 2019.
Wow, what a run.
So they kind of been on a run recently.
The Valley Vipers.
The Valley Vipers. I think that's the Houston Rockets affiliation. And I think that's all we have for today.
Yeah, thank you guys for listening to this G League Ignite special here on League Bound. Make sure you guys follow us on our socials. You can follow me at Jacob Schrantz on Instagram and Twitter.
You can follow me at Branden.Blue on Instagram.
And you can follow me at Broderick Wilken on Twitter and at Broderick Wilken on Instagram. And also Broderick Wilken on YouTube for my YouTube edits that I do every once in a while. You can also find the podcast on Spotify and YouTube, both titled League Bound. The channel is League Bound. Spotify is League Bound.
Make sure to go check out the YouTube video. We're at 100 views.
Yes, sir. We actually rebranded the YouTube channel to just League Bound because now we're doing more than just podcasts. And I think that was a great idea. And I think you guys are enjoying it a lot so far, I'd say.
Be on the lookout for Jake's video dropping soon. It's going to be a banger.
It definitely will. Thank you guys. Have a good one.
Adios.
Bye.